This is Brandon Despia. Thank you so much for watching the channel and having conversations with me about Branded. In today's video, I wanted to talk about the extra deck. As you may have noticed in several videos on YouTube regarding the deck list, more people are considering different Albaz fusions that they weren't really using before. And you may be wondering why. So I wanted to take this video to kind of have a conversation with you about it and see what we can come up with. In addition, this video was inspired by a certain person who commented recently who asked about using Sprind for Retaliating C. So I thought it may have been a good idea to just go ahead and focus on that aspect of deck building. This also was inspired by one of Pac's recent videos where he discussed his deck list, and he played a few cards that the average Branded player wasn't playing not even a month ago. So, with that being said, let's take a look and have a conversation about a few options that people can consider, have considered, and why you should consider them, and then we'll end the video with what I will end up going into my next local with these adjustments. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to keep the channel going. I love hearing more from you. So let's go back into Dueling Book, where you guys will see that I have removed 3 extra deck slots from my current Branded deck list that I've been using in locals. I dropped down Mirror Jade to 1 and to help create these 3 slots. I think this is probably as close as you're going to get into creating slots in your extra deck for Branded. I mean, the deck list is, we all know the deck is very tight in terms of its extra, what you can use for your fusion monster. So the question is, what should go in there as of right now in 2025? Well, let's take a look. Now, there are a few monsters. We have quite a list of extra deck monsters I want to go over through just very briefly. We're just simply talking about pure Branded right now. Okay. Now, let's start off with Sprind, the Irondash dragon. It requires a Fallen of Albaz or an effect plus an effect monster that was special summoned this turn. Now, this was the main reason, like I said, I decided to make this video, as we did have someone ask about Retaliating C. So let's look at what Retaliating C does. When your opponent activates a spell card that includes an effect that special summons a monster or monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If summoned this way, while this card is face up on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So, now, you may have recently heard that cards like Dimensional Barrier is gone. Like, you can't use that to floodgate Branded, or any fusion deck for that matter, which is a great boon. However, this doesn't really mean that people won't try to find other ways to floodgate. So, the first ones that'll probably come to mind are Retaliating C and Contact C. So, what does Sprind allow us to do? Well, Sprind allows us to take that effect monster that was special summoned this turn to our side of the field and fuse with it in order to make a very good fusion monster. Its effect states that you can move this card to different monster zones, then you can destroy all other face-up cards in this card's column. So, this is a form of destruction, which Branded does need in its extra deck, so it does have value. And it's also a machine, which means cards like Secretarion Dragon become less potent. We'll talk about Secretarion Dragon right after, since I just gotten to it. But Secretarion Dragon has been lauded as a card that can help shut down certain dragon-based fusion strategies, or even dragon-based decks in general. The main culprits that people would want to use Secretarion Dragon for is obviously Draco Tail, which also runs the deck. Runs it itself, as it can double as a semi-floodgate and a extender. Branded can do the same thing. So you may be thinking, oh, well, then I should run this in my deck as well. Well, here is the issue of Secretarion Dragon. Well, it does stop the activated effects of some special summon dragon or spell spellcaster monsters they control. It doesn't stop the graveyard effects of the Dracotail monsters when they go into their fusion. So let's say you make a Secretarion dragon and they make a fusion monster. Well, that monster on the field might not be able to activate its effect. They can simply use the monsters they used to fusion and get rid of your Secretarion dragon anyway. But the point and Branded has many fusion monsters that aren't even dragons or spellcasters. So what I'm getting at is, well, it's not as good as people think it is. You really only should be using it primarily as an extender. And with some good timing, you may be able to shut off an opponent's turn, but it's not. You should never ever treat this card as an end-all be-all game ender. It's still a good card, but just remember that this card is not going to save you as much as you think it does in terms of, let's say you super poly your opponent's spellcaster and dragon in a Branded matchup into Secretarion. Unfortunately, there's plenty of monsters they can go into that can get rid of it. It's 1500 defense, so you can't put it in. So if you put it in an attack position, let's say you're playing against another Dracotail player, they have access to Dracotail Horn, they can easily get rid of it, which means you might want to put it in defense position, but it has 1500 defense. So yeah, if your deck can primarily use this card on your first turn as an extender, I would back away from using this card. Still a solid card to have, and if there ever becomes a meta that becomes heavily dragon based, at least you have your one free copy ready to go. It is still relatively inexpensive, but I believe it may be going up a little bit. The next card is the Dragon that Devours a Dogma. To be honest with you guys, no one who plays Branded should be not running this card. Just its utility alone justifies it in my opinion, in any Branded based build. And what I mean by when I say that, what I mean is any deck that utilizes Branded as a sub-engine or as an engine, right? So, especially if you run Super Poly alongside that. So, I do believe that Dragon that Devours the Dogma Dragon, should find a place in your Branded Dracotail deck. And by that I mean the decks that are primarily 40 to 41 card, 42 card decks that run a lot of hand traps and really only run 2 copies of Branded Fusion, maybe 1 Cartesia and 1 Albaz. I do believe that a Dragon that Devours the Dogma can fit in there. It is a great shuffling tool. It gives you extra security against card effects that will attempt to stop the reshuffling of your traps due to the effects of Dracotail Horn, Sting, and Flame. Having a card that you can summon that can take 2 bodies from your opponent and then shuffle those cards back into the deck is a great advantage to have. And if you fuse it away or your opponent takes it out, then on its end phase, you can use it to add a Dogmatica card from the deck to your hand. And obviously, the main target for that, in my personal opinion, and what I think Dracotail decks should be doing, if they do run that card, is run 1 copy of the Fallen and the Virtuous, just as a card that it can go into once this leaves the board. And this is only for the Dracotail branded versions of the deck, or any deck really that wants to run a branded sub package. I just think that these 2 cards together are just that good as a one of when you're in that scenario. Dragostapelia is a very good fusion, generic fusion that allows extra ease of use when you're talking about fusing away something like a Mirror Jade and to bring it back with Quem. It easily slots as something that you can very quickly fuse into in order to do that. I will say that Dragostapelia isn't as useful as it used to be. I think a lot of negation and the ability to bounce it back, bounce it off the field, kind of prevents the monster effect negation to stick, because it needs to be on the field and the opponent's monster has to have a predator counter on it. That being said, if you were to still use it, it's not the worst thing in the world, but there are better options currently. Albalinatus, the Abyss Dragon, is something that really only gets used primarily in formats that have a lot of dragons, such as the Blue Eyes format. When Blue Eyes first came out, a lot of branded players were running this card. But it has a very good effect, actually. This card can attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of materials used for it. And if you send it to the graveyard during the end phase, you can get a polymerization normal spell or a fusion normal spell. So this could get you that second copy of branded fusion that you always like. Unfortunately, not many dragons are the problem in this current game. And that's with me even understanding that Draco Tail exists and that more people will be playing branded. You don't have the room for this, in my personal opinion, but it's not bad to have if your locals happens to be flooded with a lot of dragons or Draco Tail, Blue Eyes, etc., or even branded. I have a suspicion, though, that this will not enter your extra deck, though. Another card that doesn't get used is Albaz System Dog Mata Calamity. It has a 4,500 attack, which is the strongest fusion monster we can create just in terms of base attack in the branded lore. Now, it can attack all your opponent's monsters once each. You have to send a card from your extra deck in order to attack with it, which is actually quite potent considering all the different fusions you can use. In the end phase, you would get so much advantage off of it simply attacking. Now, it doesn't have any other effects off of that really matter. I mean, it does have an effect that does dump everyone's extra deck to the graveyard. That's really never going to come up. You could say that Dogmatic Calamity with a branded opening in the graveyard could be an answer against something like a Liger Dancer. But objectively, this does nothing against two of them because I don't believe Liger Dancer cares about the once per turn clause. You're not really going to take a spot in your main deck, in your extra deck for this. You really aren't. The Dragon that Devours a Dogma is just way better than this card overall, and is much easier to summon and resummon. Granguignol the Dust Dragon. Of course, everyone runs one, but the question I wanted to ask for you is, are you running one or two? The general question you want to ask yourself is, well, number one, are you running the Ido or Vice King Requiem lock? If the answer to that is yes, then the next question you should ask yourself is, are you running that in the side or in the main? If you're running Ido in the main, then you should be running 2 Granguignol. But if you're running it in the side, then I would suggest 1. And since I'm running 1 in the side, I would go ahead and do that. I'll be running the 1 copy. Now, one criteria you could incorporate is if you're running 1 copy of Quem or 2. You should be running 2 currently in this game, in the meta. I guess so. The main factor is essentially, do you main the lock or not, which will decide to me if you run 2 Granguignol. Now, with all that being said, because of the Dragon that Devours the Dogma, you have more leniency to run 1-ofs because of the ability to cycle these cards. This is why it's so important to incorporate in your strategy a way to summon this and resummon this at least 1 more time in your duel. So I can use the banish effect of Granguignol, then make another one, put this Granguignol back, and then fuse into it again. So it's not like you have to run 2, since the Dragon that Devours the Dogma is a thing that exists now. So if you do run this card, you have a lot more flexibility than the average person, and you really should be running it. I do have Draco Tail, Artholion, and Gulamel here. This is I know I was talking about the pure branded builds, but some branded builds do run a very small Draco Tail package, in which case you should be running 1 each of at least the Gulamel and the Artholion. That's really non-negotiable. So you might have a little bit more of an issue with deck space if that's the case. Garura, the Wings of Resonant Life. The main question you want to ask yourself is, do you run Super Poly in your deck or extra deck or not? I think simply saying I have Granguignol and this is a nice solid option to send to draw a card is a good but not sufficient enough option in my personal opinion. Because I run Super Poly, for example, not only could I use this to dump and draw if worse comes to worse, there are many matchups where this will come up as a Super Poly target, so I think if you only run Garura as your non-branded super poly target, then you're good, because you have a lot of versatile options here. Then we have the Brigand, the Glory Dragon. It is fusible with Albaz and a level 8 or higher monster, so it's generally very generic, which is good as a fusion target, especially in certain matchups like the Draco Tail matchup, which features level 8 monsters, and the Mitsu deck, which also features very powerful level 8 monsters. So you can actually use Albaz and and their monster to make Brigand if you don't want to go into something else. So what does it do? Well, it can't be destroyed by battle, which is a solid defender. And while you control this fusion solid summon card, that your opponent cannot target other monsters you control with monster effects. If this said with card effects, this would be a very great card and something I would automatically put in the deck. Monster effects, there's not a lot of monster effects that are really prevalent that you're going to say Brigand saves you. The reason why you run it is because of its fusion conditions for fusion summoning, and the fact that during the end phase of Ascent to the Graveyard, you can get Fallen of Albaz or essentially a Tri-Brigade Recursion. This is actually more valid than it has been in recent memory because of the fact that, the way people are playing Branded and the way they're thinking about Branded is slowly changing and becoming more modernized. That Brigand becomes more of a valid slot in your extra deck, just so you can have another beast monster that you can send off of Branded in High Spirits, especially if you're running copies of Meows, and being able to get Tri-Brigade Mercurier without the use of Branded Lost, because there will be lines where you're not searching for Branded Lost, especially when we come to February, then that will take more prevalence in your strategy. So I think Brigand the Glory Dragon is a very neat option to have here. Simply for the purpose of extending and creating advantage with your graveyard plays. Remember, we have a lot more cards that will attempt to send extra deck monsters to the graveyard, so having extra cards in the chamber, so to speak, to send that will give you different value is very important. Just want to make sure I brought this up too. When Sprind, the Irondash Dragon, goes to the graveyard, you can get a Spriggan's monster or Fallen of Albaz, which in this case would be Spriggan's Kit. The reason why this is important now is because along with the Dragon that Devours a Dogma, you can use Sprind the Irondash Dragon to reuse a card like Branded Retribution. After using the effect to banish it, to put a card back to your hand, you can use Sprind the Irondash Dragon to special summon Spriggan's Kit from the graveyard, from the deck, then use its ability to put the Branded Retribution back to your hand, then immediately put it back in the deck, which will allow a card like Albion, like your Red Albion, the Branded Dragon, to set it again. The Branded strategy, once again, has become more focused, has included the recursion of cards like the Fallen and the Virtuous and Branded Retribution in its strategy more than it used to. So you really want to think about those types of things when you're considering your extra deck. Now, I think we're going to be reaching the end of the video here, but before I do, I want to go back to my current Branded deck list, a 60 card. And we're going to make a decision right now on what we're going to use. So, I think the first card that we're definitely going to use is Brigand the Glory Dragon. Brigand the Glory Dragon does give me another beast for High Spirits because I run Meows here. It's going to be more important that I'm able to have a different option to send instead of the Dragon that Devours a Dogma. One of the concerns I had was if I wanted to send a beast to the graveyard, the only option I had was this card, and I usually want to summon this so I can start recurring things. So Brigand is an alternative option that will allow me to get a Tri-Brigade Mercurier for a negation. Because Branded doesn't have a lot of solid options to deal with monster effects in the graveyard, Mercurier can be simply held on to for those types of effects while you're dealing with everything else. The next monster I want to consider is Sprind, the Irondash Dragon. One of Branded's issues is that it does lack some sort of back row removal. So Sprind gives us a third option along with our Borreload Furious and our Chaos Star Source Dragon to do so. Plus, this gives us an out against something like a Retaliating C. Right? Again, once this card is summoned, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Now, Branded can play around that. We have plays through Branded Fusion that get around this. However, all that your opponent then has to do is hold on to the Ash Blossom to prevent that. With this card on the field, then simply summoning an Albaz takes care of the issue. And it looks like when you summon this card from your hand, you're summoning it to their opponent is summoning it to their field, which means Albaz can be summoned and probably won't get impermed. So don't worry about that. You can easily take care of that and turn that into a Sprind, pop another card on your opponent's turn, or on your turn if you need to. And then the problem is essentially solved. So expect to see more Retaliating C and even more Contact C in the neighborhood near you, which validates the use of Sprind. And now for the last card. This one was very difficult to decide. For this particular deck, it really was. And I'm actually looking at my my deck IRL right now. And the reason why is because I really wanted to, in my previous video, I said I really wanted to run a second Mirror Jade for the comfort of being able to summon a second one. But here's the issue. I didn't take into account, because I was running the Incredible Ecclesia, that this is where the value of the Virtuous, this is where the value of the Fallen and the Virtuous comes in, right? The fact that we can reborn any monster at any time needs to be something we think about more. And because we combine that with the effect of Dogma Dragon, we have plenty of options to take those 1-ups, whether they're banished face down, or put in the graveyard, and reshuffle them, reuse them over again, giving us a superior blend of grind game, recursion, and versatility in how we can attack different issues in our extra deck. So I went back to 1 on the Mirror Jade. It's the same reason I did the same with the 1 on Grand Guignol, the Dust Dragon. If I need a second one, I'm going to use my Dogma Dragon and put it back in the deck. Okay, so the last option will be a Garura. I run Super Poly in my deck. So because I'm running Super Poly, this still is a valid target to have against many matchups. Many matchups that will summon monsters with the same types and attributes. And it doubles as a draw off of Grand Guignol. So it does have a lot of versatility there. And I think it validates the use of Garura. But if you're not running Super Poly, I probably wouldn't run this. To be honest with you, I would run something else. I know Grand Guignol can use it. You know, and to be honest, you can make the argument to still use it without Super Poly, and I'm not really going to push you on it. It's still a very strong card, but I think you can probably find other options as well. So let me go ahead and save that. And this is what my current deck list is right now. So we're going to take that to a local, and I'll give you an update on that as well. So yeah, that's the end of the video. So what do you think about those fusion monsters? Like, let me know in your extra deck which of those fusion monsters we discussed you're running and why. Maybe there's a lot of Blue Eyes players in your neighborhood, so you really feel like you got to run Albaz. Perhaps you're a Draco Tail branded player and you really enjoy Secretarion Dragon, and of course you should be running Secretarion Dragon if that's the case. But maybe if you're thinking about making a pure branded deck and you want to know if Secretarion Dragon might be the right choice. Well, I just gave you my opinions on all of that, so let me hear yours in the comments below. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.